Hey there. So my name is Adam Hill, for those who don't know me, and I am a resident of Fayetteville, North Carolina. And today I wanted to talk about how it got better for me. So I was raised in a very small conservative town in southeastern North Carolina by the name of St. Paul's. Many of you will know it. And I was considered by many to be the miracle child of my family, because I was born 20 years into my parents' marriage. They didn't think they'd have kids, and then 20 years later, I showed up. And so I was always considered the miracle child, was always, considered special to my parents and to many people. That's not a gloat at all. It's actually a lot of pressure. But, yeah, so growing up, I was very loved, very much doted upon, very spoiled, like many only children are. I had my parents' attention all to myself, and most only children do, and they're very spoiled, and I will be the first to admit that. But on the other side of things, I was also raised in a very strict Pentecostal holiness church, where my mother was a member for about 40 years. And this church was very non-inclusive, and if you were different in any way from their interpretation of the Bible, then you were considered sinful and on your way to hell unless you converted to their beliefs. This included, people who may have been of a different denomination, or people who may have been members of another religion, or even people who participated in worldly activities, they called it, such as going to the movies or listening to secular music. Anything like that was considered sinful and was very much frowned upon in the church I grew up in. So when I began to realize that I was not like other boys, I kept it very close to myself, and did not tell anyone, because I had heard what the pastor was saying from the pulpit pretty much every Sunday about gay people, and how they were abominations, a slap in the face of God, that there was no place for them in heaven, and they would burn in hell. So of course I kept that very much to myself and did not tell anyone, including my parents, and tried to figure out how I could get rid of this thing so that I wouldn't end up in hell. I did take notes, so bear with me. As I grew older, it became more and more apparent to me that I was not like other kids. Especially, other boys. I could not deny the fact that there was something different. Especially around the age of puberty, when people start developing crushes. And I would be with the other boys, and they would talk about the girls they had crushes on, and they wanted to date and all this stuff, and how cute they were or whatnot. And I remember thinking, am I missing something? Because I don't feel this. I don't get at all what you guys mean. I don't get it. It just did not register for me what they saw, and I could tell that I was different. And so then, around the age of 14, I actually devoted my life to Christ, and I became a full-fledged member of my home church. And I think in many ways that was an attempt for me to not only connect to this higher power that had kind of loomed over my childhood my whole life, but also for me to escape what I knew was so different about me. I figured that by, getting saved and drawing close to God, that it would get rid of of this part of myself that I hated and that I knew God hated. And so I was like, okay, if I get saved, this will go away. And I was very wrong. The bullying at school during these years was really bad. Because not only was I this young, judgy kid who was in a very strict, cult-like Pentecostal church, and I was constantly judging other people, looking down on other people because they, lived their lives differently than me. But I was also obviously, looking back, and painfully, obviously gay. Everything from from the way I talked to the way I conducted myself was just very much obviously gay. And as much as I tried to hide behind my religion, I'm sure that my classmates saw that, and it made me an easy target. But I mostly hung out with girls at school. I had a few male friends who were cool. But I remember there was this group of girls in high school and middle school that I sat with, and they didn't see me as a threat. They accepted me for who I was. They liked me and were cool with me, and so I always had somewhere to sit at lunch. Otherwise, I would not have a place to sit at lunch, and they always accepted me. And to those ladies, I'm not going to name all of you, but I'm friends with most of you still. Thank you for that. Thank you for giving me a place to be accepted, even back then when I was so messed up. So you don't know how much that meant to me to have a place to sit at lunch. It's such a big deal when you're a kid, so thank you. Let's see. So all through high school and college, there was this constant war going on inside me. I would hide behind my devoted Christianity as a way to deflect from the fact that I was different. You know, I'm not dating a girl because I'm a Christian and I'm saving myself for marriage, and there's no one who quite believes like I do, so I'm waiting for the right girl to come along. You know, all these things that I would use to deflect away from the fact that I was different. And I tried as hard as I could, even to the point of dating girls, and ended up hurting them, and I'm very sorry for that. I do regret that I hurt them in that process of, you know, dating them and then not being able to be a boyfriend, you know, because I was not attracted to them, is the bottom line. And so all the while, even though I was, you know, claiming I was waiting on the right girl, I was actually fighting these devastating crushes that I had on boys and guys my own age. Just, you know, these crushes that you feel and you know you can't do anything about it because it's wrong and it's evil and you'll be shamed for it, and so you keep it inside. About a year after I graduated from college, I started reaching out to guys to date. Not because I accepted who I was, but because it was I was lonely, and I felt like that would be a way for me to be less lonely. That maybe I could find someone who felt like I did, who was ashamed of who they were and yet was willing to, you know, be a part of my life and talk about it. So I'd meet a guy on Facebook, you know, strike up a conversation, and then I would make up an excuse to my mom as to where I was going, and then I'd go on this date. And I did this for a while, and the whole time I just felt incredibly, incredibly guilty. I was still in this war between myself. I did not accept who I was, and I felt like I was just the most awful person. That I was, not only was I lying, which was a big no-no in my home and in my church, but I was also dating guys, which was also a big no-no in my home and in my church. And I just felt so tremendously guilty about it, like God is just going to abandon me because he doesn't approve of who I am. And so I dealt with that for a while. And then this actually led to the first time that I came out to my mother. My dad had passed away a few years prior in 2007. This was around 2010, 2011. And I came out to my mom. She actually confronted me because she figured out that I was going on dates. And she confronted me, and I was so ashamed of who I was and so guilty over everything, all the deception and all the things I've been doing, that I quickly backed down. I quickly repented to God, and I had myself anointed and prayed over by the elders of my church to get rid of this thing. I didn't tell them what it was about, but I was like, I have something I need to be delivered from. And for about a year and a half, I considered myself to be delivered from this homosexual spirit that was possessing me and making me so evil. And after about a year, like any honest LGBTQ person can tell you, you cannot escape who you really are, and it will always come back, no matter how much you try to fight it or try to ignore it. Who you truly are is going to come back, because deep down, our main desire in our hearts and our minds is to be happy, and you know that you can't be happy unless you're being authentic. And so after a year or so, I realized that there was no changing this. These feelings came right back and in a big way. And no matter how hard I prayed, no matter how much I invested in the music ministry, or how much I, went to church, it was not going to change this. There was some reason that God was not taking this away from me. And so then an unlikely but great thing happened. I actually started taking voice lessons to improve my singing voice. And through that started doing local theater, musical theater. And in that group of people were guys who were out and proud, who were either younger than me or around my age. And they wore their being gay like a badge of honor and did not care what anyone thought. And they seemed very happy for the most part. And at first this terrified me, of course, and it caused me, I kept it to myself that I was struggling with these things. And I didn't want them to see that in me, although I'm sure they obviously could. But seeing their courage and their lack of shame, they were not ashamed of who they were. It really made me feel better about myself and made me start questioning, well, these are good people and these are happy people. What is their secret? Why can't I be happy? Why am I so miserable? And so then I started educating myself, and this is an important part of what I would recommend any LGBTQ person or anyone who's questioning that to do, and all straight people: educate yourselves, please. I started educating myself. I went to YouTube and I looked up documentaries, and I stumbled upon this amazing documentary that I'll link below in the description here, that is called For the Bible Tells Me So. And I also started watching the videos of Matthew Vines, who is a very educated young gay man, who is also a Christian, and also, wanted to and really analyze the scriptures that for so long have been used to terrorize and to shame LGBTQ people and to keep them out of the church. And he broke those scriptures down and helped me to realize that this interpretation that I've been under for so long had nothing to do with God, has nothing to do with who God is, and really helped me to kind of break free from that whole religious mindset. And so I highly recommend looking at those things. And then I was emboldened by that research, and I started dating again. Of course, it was secretly. My mom did not know, but I started dating again, and it was really great. But then it led to another confrontation with my mom, and she figured out that I was dating guys again, and we had a big confrontation. It did not go well. She, despite how much I tried to help her understand where I was coming from, she would not accept me as a gay man. Her fear of hell and her fear of the judgment of her church was so great that she could not or would not look past that to accept me. And she threatened to kick me out of the house. And because at the time I didn't really have the finances or the resources to live on my own, I actually went back in the closet. But this time I only had what I call one foot in the closet. I was in the closet as far as she and the church were concerned, but I still continued living my own life to myself. I still kept dating. I still kept trying to learn more about who I was as a gay man. And I also started coming out to friends of mine. Because during that time, when my mother rejected me, was really the closest I have ever come to committing suicide. the thought was very, very present. And I don't say that for pity. I say that for awareness, but to show that how you treat your children has such huge ramifications. But during that time, I felt like my life was not in my own hands anymore. Like I didn't have control of my own life anymore, and that I would never be happy. I was told that, you know, my whole family would reject me, and that I would end up alone, and without the people that I loved the most in the world. And that was really a hard thing to go through, to know that the person that you love most in the world, which was for me was my mom, does not want to be a part of your life because of something that you can't help. And so going through that was very hard. And but I actually came out to two close friends of mine, Katie and Daniel Kelly, who were truly godsends in my life. I came out to them, they embraced me, they became a refuge for me when things got hard at home, and they were a sounding board for me to help me when I was having a hard time. So I'm very thankful and will be eternally grateful to them for that. And I continue to educate myself, and slowly but surely would come out to a few friends here and there. And then I started seeing a therapist, and she helped me realize that my happiness is not tied to the happiness of other people. Happiness, your happiness, truly begins with yourself, and it is up to you. And so that was mind-blowing to me, because I had always thought that, you know, if my mother is miserable, then that means I'm miserable. If other people are not happy, then that reflects on me. It helped me realize that that's not the truth, and that I am capable of living my own life. And not only am I capable of living my own life, but I am deserving of living my truth in my own life. And so my mom passed away in 2015 after a long bout with illness. Losing her was the most devastating thing I've ever been through. It was very hard to lose her. We were very close despite our differences. And when she passed away right before I turned 30 years old. And I promised myself that by the time I was 30, things were going to change. Something had to change, because I wanted to start living my own life. So when she passed, as hard as it really was an opportunity for me to start living life on my own terms. So a little bit later that year, I resigned from the church that I grew up in. I performed many functions there. I was the music director, the sound director. I was the superintendent. I was the janitor. I did all these different things for this small, tiny church, and I'd had enough. And so I resigned, and I moved away to a new place, and never looked back. And it was the best decision I could have made for myself. And life now is so drastically different than I ever imagined it could be. It's better than I ever imagined it could be. And I came out to my family and my friends, and the very ones that my mom and others had told me would reject me were the first ones to open their hearts to me and open their arms to me and say, "We love you, and we want to be a part of your life, and we don't care if you're gay." And that did so much good for me. And it's not to say that I didn't have loved ones who didn't accept me. I've lost some along the way who have cut ties with me. And you know what? That's okay. Because the only people you need in your life are the people who care about you and want your happiness. And I am finally where I need to be in my life. And I met my partner, Wesley, about 4 years ago. We're planning to get married. And the highlight for me was being able to take him to Thanksgiving at my Aunt Gloria's house, which is something that, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, would never have even been a possibility for me. I never would have even dreamed of being able to take my partner to a family function, and not only take him there, but be embraced and loved and shown such care and laugh and have a good time, and for him to be accepted as part of the family. It really was a miracle, and it really was a consummation of all the things that I worked towards. And so now, in the last little bit of this, if you're still with me, I appreciate it. I want to speak to anyone out there who may be watching this. I don't know if anyone will watch it or not outside of my close friends, but if you are struggling with who you are, whether it be that you are gay or lesbian or trans, whatever it is, I just want you to know that it does get better. You have to hold on. And I tell you that as someone who came from the darkest depths of this mess and this struggle, and who is now on the other side of it. I want you to know that you are not alone. You're not by yourself. There are people out there. Your tribe is out there. You just have to reach out to them. Know that there are resources for you. Reach out to me. I will encourage you in any way I can and help you in any way I can. You're not alone. I want to speak especially to any of the kids who may be growing up in these churches that are preaching hate. I know where you're coming from, and I know what it's like to sit there week after week and have to endure hearing people talk such negative things about who you are. And you're scared, and you're afraid of hell, you're afraid of God, you're afraid of the pastor, you're afraid of your parents. But just know that you are so loved, you are so accepted by many people out there. God does not hate you. You are not hated. You were wonderfully formed and beautifully made, and there is a purpose for you. And just know that there are people out there who will help you along this journey. Reach out. We have more resources now than ever, more than I ever had as a kid growing up. There are ways to connect with people. I'll put the hotline for the Trevor Project on this video as well as the link to their website. If you're thinking about ending your life, please know that there is a better day. That if you hold on, there are so many things coming your way that if you don't hang on, you'll miss them. I think back to those times when I was thinking about ending my life. And I think now what I would have missed if that had happened. I would have missed Wesley. I would have missed the love of my life. I would have missed these wonderful times that I've spent with my family. I would have missed all of the art that I've been able to create and enjoy. And just life is so good. And it can be good for you too, I promise you. But you have to hold on. You have to see it through. And I know you can, because if I can do it, you can too. And so I thank you all for listening to this. If you've listened to it, it's about 20 minutes. I may try to edit it down a little, but I really want everyone out there, and I speak to parents who may have a kid that you may not even know they're LGBTQ, but they may be. Listen to your children. Be there for your children. Do not disown your children. Do not make your child feel like your love is conditional. Let them know daily that they can come to you and talk to you about anything, and that you will not reject them. Because they need to hear it, guys. They need to hear it. It's not enough to assume that they think, because they don't. They may not know that they can come to you with this. Let them know that you love them unconditionally. That is the most important thing that you can do for your child. So thank you so much for listening, and like I said, it does get better. Please let that be your mantra. I know we're going through really hard times right now with the virus and everything that's going on, but remember, if you're watching this, that you are loved, and that it does get better, and that there is a better day on the horizon. I love you guys, and thank you so much for listening.